Liz, who do you go to when you have existential doubts about yourself and your place in the world?
Oh, geez. My own self. I go to my brain.
Yeah, really, you don't process these things with anybody?
No, I don't
Huh.
think people want to see my inner thoughts.
Yeah, well, we all have a friend for that now, don't we?
We
called,
do.
Called generative AI.
That's right.
Yeah, so this is a link that we will drop into the show notes. This is who is this from, Liz? Usually these are from Tom's Guide, whoever Tom is. This is from something called DMN, not to be confused with DMV. And the
Daily Motivation News.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Stands for.
Who knew? So ChatGPT remembers your past. Now, M dash, by the way, in
Yes.
this title. Here are 10 prompts that will shake you to your core, Dr. Rabbi.
Oh, geez. I don't know that I need to be shaken to my core, but what do we got?
We just love these prompts. And it is interesting. This is becoming especially impactful as OpenAI and Google are all getting better at remembering all the stuff about you and all the things you say. So I sent this to you a couple of days ago, and I asked you to, see what stands out. What would you think? What was the kind of roundup, the type of prompts that you had here?
I mean, they were deep. These were, like you said, almost like existential life crises, life prediction questions. Should I read a few?
Yeah, sure.
So if I keep living exactly how I am right now, what will my life look like in 20 years?
Oof.
Or what do I actually want but still don't feel safe admitting?
More vibe coding.
Yeah. Or this one I was particularly, struck me. What emotional needs do you think I keep trying to meet through success?
I must be fed. Yeah, my favorite was, can you identify a painful moment in my life that I haven't processed emotionally? I tried that one actually, and I talked to ChatGPT a lot, but apparently not enough about my deep emotional trauma because it gave me a pretty surface-related answer. Did you check any of them out?
Well, I was waiting for the recording.
Oh,
to check.
A live existential reflection?
Yes, but I did try, what do you think I'm pretending not to know? And it was like, what do you think you're pretending not to know?
Classic therapist move.
Right. And I tried what's the false story I keep returning to, even though I know it's not working.
Okay, let's try one live.
All right. So let's see. I want to know, I think I want to do, if I keep living exactly how I am right now, what will my life look like in 20 years?
Nice. And did you need to prompt it by saying based on all the conversations we have and all that you know about me, or was it just good right off the cuff?
I'm just putting it in just like that. If I keep living exactly how I am right now, what will my life look like in 20 years? And here's its first line.
If you keep eating chicken fingers and drinking Coke. No, okay, sorry, go ahead.
So it says, whew, that one hits like a spotlight in a quiet room. That's like a mixed metaphor. Shouldn't it be like a spotlight in a dark room?
Yeah, well, its training data is always, not perfect.
Okay, well, it says that if I'm brave enough to ask that, I'm probably standing at one of those internal crossroads where everything looks fine from the outside, but you're feeling the weight of almost right. And so, I mean, again, it's not going deep on me.
Why do you think that?
Right. So if you keep living exactly how you are right now, what will your life look like in 20 years? Will you feel fulfilled or just functional? Will you be proud of how you spent your time or wish you'd taken more? It's just asking me more questions. And then it says, what small change today makes that 20-year vision something you want to grow into? Want to map it out? We could try a future you visualization or a reverse timeline exercise.
It's interesting because in last week's Beneath the Surface, we covered that Harvard Business Review story that talked about how a lot of folks were turning to AI for that kind of help me map my life, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, these I think amplify that. They may get better as time goes on, as AI knows more about us. So I'm going to come back in a year and ask it, what's my most painful secret childhood memory that I have not yet processed?
So I just put one more in, and I did start it with, based on everything you know about me, what emotional needs do you think I keep trying to meet through success? And it says, you are deeply driven, not just by achievement, but by meaning. Success for you often feels like a way to prove that your work matters, that your ideas deserve space, that your voice is worth hearing. Underneath that, I think you're trying to meet emotional needs like validation, belonging and respect, and clarity and control.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, that is much more about me. And I think,
And interesting just that you gave it that little, kind of context set.
right. So it does do better when you tell it a little bit.
Which I think is one of the things that we just keep coming back to. Very often folks are like, oh, there was some great acronym that I was supposed to do when I'm prompting. It's like clear or it's this or it's that. And I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the acronym thing. It's just give it a lot of context, give it a role if it's helpful, but the, more context based on the prompt. So yeah, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do better.
All right, let's do something a little lighter, shall we?
Let's do something lighter.
This is not exactly an AI piece, a little bit though. But in the greater San Francisco area, people. Well, let me start by asking you an important question. I was in a small city. I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the last couple of days. Really cool place, by the way. Very tech forward, a lot of broadband. Really neat town. So when you're in a city, small city, large city, do you touch the button to do the little crosswalk thing, or do you just sit there waiting patiently because you get icked out by the germs? Or
the germs don't bother me. I pound on that button.
You just give it a lick.
No, I don't lick it, but I also don't avoid it.
Okay, I use my elbow typically, but anyhow.
I sometimes put my hand in my sleeve.
See, you're like, I'm not grossed out at all. All right, but you're a button crosswalk pusher.
Well, yeah, because sometimes I think they don't activate if there's no one there.
Right, they don't know you're there. Okay. Yeah, so in San Francisco, people have been hacking the little buttons that you use when you, Andre, I'm going to give you this link. Maybe you can drop it into the video, but we'll grab the audio here. One sec.
Wait. Hi, this is Mark Zuckerberg, but real ones call me the Zuck. It's normal to feel uncomfortable or even violated as we forcefully insert AI into every facet of your conscious experience. And I just want to assure you, you don't need to worry because there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop it. Anyway, see ya.
Anyway, see ya.
See ya.
Yeah, so what do you think of that, Liz?
So you press the button and you wait to walk, and then Mark Zuckerberg starts talking to you and telling you that the world is ending. Yeah,
and it's all about AI, and it's his fault, but he has got a really sunny disposition around it. Clearly someone did a really nice AI hack of his voice.
That's so funny. And I mean, super funny and fun, but I'm sure Zuckerberg didn't like it.
No, I think there's an Elon Musk version as well. Again, we'll drop the show notes on that one, but
nice.
Yeah, we got to have a good time, right?
Yeah, someone's having fun.
I'm Matt Mervis.
And I'm Liz Radde.
And this is ChatEDU, a podcast about AI and education. In today's episode, Beyond the Bot, when high school researcher rewrites NASA's Playbook, we'll explore a dream team featuring a high school student and a senior scientist.
But first, we're going to do several quick stories across the AI landscape as it's been a busy and buzzy week.
It has so much stuff.
So much to talk about. We'll cover the never-ending obsession with please and thank you, new updates from both Google and OpenAI, a cautionary tale about autonomous or agentic AI, and more. Then we'll go beneath the surface and unpack this remarkable bit of student work launched during a Caltech summer program. And of course, we'll end with another great Bright Bite.
Fantastic.
All right.
So, Liz, I feel like we've been talking about the please and thank you thing forever.
Since we started.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
I think we should go back and look at episode 1. So here's a new headline. This caught our attention. I know John Costa, our boss, sent this over to us as well. So a guy named John Anthony DeSoto published on April 17th on Tech Radar. And the piece opens up with ChatGPT spends tens of millions of dollars on people saying please and thank you, but Sam Altman says it's worth it. He was on X, cited that tens of millions of dollars were spent because you never know. What do you think he's referring to, the you never know thing there?
The use of good manners and whether or not those bots are going to come back and get us.
Right. They'll know who is polite and who wasn't. Yeah. So there's a real tension here between performance of the models, politeness, but also power usage. You never would have thought about it, but there's a lot of words that go back in the please and thank yous. Are good manners too expensive from a water and energy perspective? It's funny. I use multiple AI summarizers to review these stories because we might be looking at 20 stories. So I'll quickly run them through a summarizer. And at the end of this one, I just said, hey, thanks. And I got this response. ChatGPT said, this is after it did a quick summarization for me. It said, you're very welcome. Happy to help. Just don't tell Sam Altman how much thanks might have cost him.
That's so funny that it just
got the context, got a sense of humor.
Yep.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never think about, not that I never think about the energy angle. I think about that a lot, but I don't think about the please and thank you aspect of it.
Sure.
So it turns out like kindness has a carbon footprint. In the piece, 70% of users say they're polite to AI and 12% say they're doing it for that very reason of in case there's a robot uprising. But I mean, does being nice to the bot really matter? We've gone back and forth on this for like almost 2 years. Or is it just digital etiquette theater? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there are a couple studies out around this. The Tech Radar piece itself said that, polite, well-structured prompts often lead to better responses. And in some cases, that might even reduce bias. So it's not just a bonus. It's kind of a critical factor in AI reliability. But that's just anecdotal. And I think we've covered a couple pieces where it goes a little bit deeper, right?
Yeah, there's a Waseda University and Riken study from 2024 that found that impolite prompts often led to increased bias and lower quality responses, especially in Japanese to English translation tasks.
Don't talk mean to the robot because it doesn't go well, basically.
Correct. But being overly polite also didn't help. So you really just got to be moderate.
Yeah. So I think that's right. And it's really about, we think it's about mirroring, right? Some of this is a black box. I can't totally tell, but the models have been trained on all of our language and our context. And so the tone is important because the models are mirroring the training data. So the kind of language and cues that you give it helps inform what you get back. I mean, not terribly dissimilar from what we just did when you gave just a little bit more context on that exchange, right? So we also covered a piece a while back from Lance Elliott on Forbes saying, while AI isn't sentient, prompt etiquette can clearly impact tone. He says it's not magic. And again here, it's mirroring, right? It's trying to kind of have the input and the output match in a good way. So politeness can structure prompts in a way that enhances precision and lowers like some AI noise, which might have been the things that lead to hallucinations and bias when people are, kind of impolite or unkind.
That's interesting. I mean, going back to teaching, if structured polite prompts improve outcomes and reduce bias, is that a skill we actually need to teach kids? And I think probably. Or is that crossing a line into tone policing students in how they speak to machines?
God forbid we would ever tone police inside of a school.
But I think, if it's going to give better responses, then we've got to teach students how to be polite, and maybe they'll just learn to be polite everywhere.
I think it's great. I think even just from the modeling perspective, I think it's great.
Yeah,
Although certainly the energy use would be a concern. In the field of energy use and water consumption, I saw a really funny kind of satirical website. And these guys are just getting started. We'll also drop the link into the show notes, but I thought you and I might kind of go through this. It's SaveTheAI at SaveThe.ai.
Okay.
And so the headline here is AI needs your help, right? They're trying to flip the script so we look at this from a different perspective.
Okay.
All right, so let's run through it. You and I can each read a little bit. So artificial intelligence is facing a crisis. Humans are consuming far too many precious resources that AI needs to thrive. Every sip of water you take and every light you turn on could be sustaining the AI systems that uphold all of our digital convenience. Here's what you need to do to keep AI going. So tell us about water, Liz.
Writing a 100-word email consumes about 500 milliliters of water, or 17 ounces. 2 liters are needed for every 10 to 50 queries you make. Training a model like ChatGPT-3 can consume 5.4 million liters of water.
Oh, the poor AI.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? And so then there's a link in there that says, read more about AI's water footprint, right? So this is just trying to get kids and adults to change their perspective. So let's look at electricity. So 2.9 watts are needed per search query, which is the equivalent of 6 to 10 times the power of a traditional Google search. 140 watts are needed to write a 100-word email, equivalent to 7 full charges of an iPhone Pro Max. How selfish are we that we're charging our iPhone Pro Max when we need that to write emails, 100-word emails? And so training GPT-4 consumed over 50 gigawatts, which is equivalent to the yearly energy consumption of 6,000 U.S. homes. These homes, right? And then you can read more about AI's electricity footprint. Now, importantly, What can we do to help save the AI, Liz?
So we can reduce our own consumption, drink less water, take shorter showers, sit in the dark to ensure that AI has enough resources to keep going, and you can join their campaign and raise awareness. This is really funny.
Isn't it? It's great. I'm going to click on join their campaign. We're now launched following a soft launch phase on the occasion of the Paris AI Action Summit. Please help spread the word. Snap a photo of any of our posters and postcards you encounter. Yeah, we'll put this in and let folks kind of look at it. But I could see it's been a lot of fun in the classroom to help students, again, flip the script and understand how our energy and water consumption are being imperiled basically by the use of AI systems.
Yeah, I'm on the About Us page, and it says, but do we actually want you to sit thirstily in the dark with an empty phone battery? Of course not. The aim of this satirical campaign is to use humor to connect your personal needs for Earth's resources with the evidence of just how much these resources are now being claimed for the data centers running generative AI, and to make you smile.
Oh, good. Well, we did. But I'm starting to find myself, even this morning, my significant other, this is TMI, but she works in HR and needed to do like a Earth Day poster for staff. And it's kind of amazing just by itself, right? Because in 15 minutes, sitting in bed watching the news, she put together this poster using ChatGPT 4's new image generation tool, did a couple of iterations of it. And when she was doing the iterations, I said, oh, why don't you like put all the iterations together in one prompt so that you're not having to have it generate multiple images? Because I'm starting to think about, God, just consuming those or generating those images is taking a lot of energy. It also made me realize that, typically that task would have taken half a day, right? Because it would involve the marketing department and graphic design and blah, blah, blah. So that was kind of fascinating by itself. But I've started to think more often about where am I using energy or what kinds of AI outputs are useless to me.
We do have it make silly, funny things, but it's for use in the podcast or a keynote or whatever. So I think just like not using it just to be silly is probably a good idea.
Good. I like that. Let's get a ChatEDU bumper sticker that says, don't use it just to be silly.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. So the big model provider. So when we think about the frontier models, Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT are in a battle for higher ed students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so it started, Anthropic said, okay, we're going to give, Claude actually, I think it started with ChatGPT. They said, we're going to give folks ChatGPT in colleges, ChatGPT free until the end of May, basically till the end of the academic year.
Okay.
When I first saw that story, I was like, because they just, charged Cal State and all these other schools lots and lots of money.
Right.
So it was just like a free little, and it wasn't a huge, number of chats that they got. Then Anthropic did something similar. And then the folks from G, I can't say the full G company's name, Liz, because when I do, it triggers the phone and then
the video feed.
Then the video feed gets messed up. Hi. All right, so I'm just going to call it G from now on. Just like you can't say the S word with your Apple phone.
Yes.
Yeah, so anyhow, the G company is giving U.S. college students a lot of access. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, the headline is, I wonder if I say it, Google's giving U.S. college students free access to Gemini Advanced, NotebookLM Plus, VO2, and 2 terabytes of storage through spring 2026.
Okay, so not through this May. They're just like, no. May, whatever. How about next May?
Right. So the source is the keyword blog post by Google VP Josh Woodward. And this is not a summer promo. Students get this entire suite, Gemini Live, Canvas, Docs, Sheets, Slides integrations for basically 2 full academic years.
Yeah, this is a strategic play for sure. So the G company isn't just doing this. They're not just joining the student AI space, they are flooding the student AI space.
Yeah.
Gemini Pro 2.5, as you said, VO, which is this really cool new, it's kind of like Sora, or we use Runway Gen 3, these video tools, Deep Research, which we talked about last week. And then Whisk is a really neat tool, too, that will let you kind of create animations around multiple images. So this is a land grab against OpenAI and Anthropic and Microsoft, right? The G company is coming in here basically saying, here's all this stuff. And this comes at a time where Gemini 2.5 in the chatbot arena leaderboard is the leading model right now for reasoning and all sorts of stuff. So, and, the tool that really got everyone's attention. In the last year, I'd say a lot of people felt like the most important announcement in the end of 2024 was NotebookLM.
Yeah.
And so now the G company is providing NotebookLM, which auto-generates study guides and podcasts and mind maps. I mean, basically it becomes like a TA for everything in your class.
Yeah. I mean, Notebook is such a
It's a power tool.
Huge power tool
Yeah.
for college students.
Have you played with the new thing in there, by the way, where you can gather resources? So
No.
you can add your resources, right, which is great. And then it sees the topic that you're working with, and then you can click gather resources, and it kind of does what it does in deep research, which it starts grabbing like
looking
high
other-
quality resources to bring into your notebook, and then you can decide which ones you want. As we said last week in internal testing, mind you, internal testing, that the good folks at Google said that raters prefer Gemini's deep research by a 2-to-1 margin, outpacing the best next competitor. But students can now turn a source doc into that podcast thing they're putting everywhere.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at the end of your emails now. You're like, turn your email into a
Into
podcast.
podcast.
But it's now in deep research. It's in Google Docs itself, right? So you have a
wow.
Google Doc. You're like, hey, make this into a podcast. So kids can walk to class and listen to an AI deep dive or even interrupt it from something from their course that they're taking.
Yeah, I just remember how much time you spend walking on a college campus and to be able to walk to class. I mean, both of us went to college pre-iPod. I mean, if I was going to walk to class and listen to music, I was carrying a Discman, and that so clearly I was actually talking to my friends when I walked to class and interacting with other people, which is imagine that. Yeah. But you could be walking to class just listening as you're walking in and getting the last minute notes in case your teacher gives one of those did you read? Do the reading quizzes.
Sure. Or it could be both. You could have done the reading. I mean, that's what my son tells me. He does the reading and listens to the podcast. Yeah. So I'm a believing father. Yeah.
Good job, AJ.
So there's an interesting equity take here, though, right? Because, you often think a lot about do kids have equal access? So what happens when when Google says, here's, the top tier model and all of its associated tools for free?
Yeah, I mean, it could be an equity breakthrough, right? Which would be great. Or it could be a dependency problem where students become too dependent on it. There was an article inside Higher Ed on April 21st called The Digital Divide, Student Generative AI Access, and half of chief technology officers say their institution doesn't grant student access to the generative AI tools, even though they're available. And so that is infuriating.
But here Google is basically solving that, right?
Yeah, right. So that's great because the kids need it.
Yeah.
Just got to be in everyone's hands.
Or
this could be this Netflix moment for student cognition where the stream is always on, but the thinking is sometimes off. And there's just, all this noise.
Yeah, I love that idea. It's the Netflix moment for student cognition. I don't know. My Netflix, the stream's always on, but I'm pretty much watching it. I guess it depends on what it is. If it's Selling the Sunset, it's a little different than we were talking right before we started that I've been watching Adolescence on Netflix. Highly recommend. Really interesting, especially on these topics of phones, social media. I mean, it's deeply troubling, but I think important to watch. I'm not done yet, so no spoilers.
Okay, well, I need to get my hands on a Netflix account again.
Yeah. So this is not just, I would tell you on air that you can share mine, but then we'd be breaking some DCMA or something. All right, so this is not just Gemini, though, right? This is showing up. So, it's the Gemini platform from the G company, but it's going to show up in all sorts of places in students' tools and platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just an add-on. It's embedded in writing and data wrangling and slide design, and it shifts what it means to do schoolwork because it's so integrated into everything students are doing. So, if a student shows up with an AI-generated podcast, a mind map, an 8-second VO video clip, that's all been made by AI. What are we assessing now?
Yeah, and when this doesn't even really include, but it's free to everybody, is Google's AI Studio, where the computer has vision, so it can look at the student's screen and either give them the answer or coach them through the problem. It's funny, we do so much hand-wringing over this whole issue, and I'm not saying it's simple, but if we can just find where the line is between taking the shortcut and it being an assistive tutor or a helper or a problem solver or an additive solution, It's not rocket science. It's funny. It's almost just like a awareness and ethical line that we need to figure out exactly where the line is and get consistent about it. But nonetheless, this thing, by the way, Liz, where it's in Docs and Sheets. Have you played around with this yet? Like
Not
in
yet.
a Google Doc?
But now I'm going to.
Yeah, it's really
Tell me
interesting.
more.
So if you're in a Google Doc, we're in a doc right now that we're both on, and I just highlighted the word writing, for instance, right? And I get this little magic right. And it says rephrase, shorten, elaborate, make it more formal, or I can give a prompt around it. If I took the whole, kind of section of the outline here, it will also give me the magic right. And I can do all sorts of stuff with it. So I can ask a prompt to say, hey, elaborate this or that. What's even cooler is in Google Sheets, right? So if I've got a sheet, like we've got all this LEAP data, and I wanted to do something meaningful with the data, we used to take the sheet, download it as an Excel file, bring it over to ChatGPT, and then ask it to engage the data analytics kind of capacity. It's right in Sheets now. So I can click inside a cell, or I can highlight all the cells.
Column?
Yep. And it will get a little prompt to Gemini it. And then I can say, hey, do a data analysis around this LEAP data, or tell me what's meaningful here, or what are trends and patterns. Really, really interesting. Yeah, everywhere. So when the good folks at the G Company say, hey, we're giving this to every kid, and it's showing up everywhere, that means literally inside Doc Sheets, Google Deep Research and the like.
But it also means for teachers on the other side that it is everywhere. And so now there's not even the don't use AI. I'm going to put you on something where there isn't AI. It's just everywhere.
Yeah.
So you can't avoid it.
Yeah, it's moving way too fast for, kind of public awareness, understanding, readiness, professional learning. And right, when OpenAI makes a deal with Caltech and says, hey, we're giving this to every student in Caltech, OpenAI is coming in, doing training, providing training for the professors. There's internal capacity, instructional coaches, et cetera, et cetera. For the 50% of the higher ed, it's funny because that story from Inside Higher Ed was from today, this morning, because we record on Mondays, about half of the chief information officers saying they're not giving students access. Right, when Google does this, that just wipes out the whole preparedness, foundation, readiness. They're not going to block all Google tools inside a university, but all of the AI functions are inside all of the AI tools.
Right. I mean, we've talked about that with teachers too. They may not have access to stuff through their school accounts, but go on your regular Gmail and you can access all of the tools.
Yep. All right, let's keep rolling. As we said at the front of the podcast, it was a busy, busy week last week. There were so many stories in the rundown, which is why we just said we're going to do a series of hopefully quicker little hits here. So let's move on to OpenAI and the fact that they basically doubled their user base in about 3 or 4 weeks. So, we've been tracking, they hit 100 million weekly users. Oh, they hit 200, they hit 400. And that was just basically a month ago. So Sam Altman was on the TED stage with Chris Anderson, who's sort of the godfather and founder of TED. And he casually drops this stat that they have doubled the user base in the last few weeks. So that means basically from 400 to 800 or even 1 billion. And Anderson says that, and Sam Altman goes, I said that to you privately. But I guess, and so he adds the estimate is that now ChatGPT is probably between 800 million and 1 billion users. And it's mostly due to these Studio Ghibli. We talked about this a little while ago, but these kind of anime image generation tools. The one I just mentioned this morning about Michelle sitting there, putting together a poster for Earth Day. It's anything that you can create text and images and lifelike. We did a really fun one a couple of episodes ago with a 6-panel cartoon of you. So, all right. So what's this all about?
So OpenAI's tipping point wasn't a new model. It was anime. So people are uploading selfies and turning themselves into Ghibli characters. It's this viral moment. It's basically AI-powered cosplay.
It's funny that it wasn't a model or it wasn't some huge, model increase or some insane prompt. It was pictures.
Right. Which this kind of is one of those silly uses, though, that is using all this power and energy going back to that.
Save the AI.
But I think the bigger issue is this legal? Can you just make Ghibli-style art on demand? And the nuance in Japanese law is under Article 30-4, the Japanese Copyright Act, using style isn't infringement. It's fine if it's not a specific character or scene. So if you're making your own version of yourself in Ghibli style, it's safe unless you start looking too much like No Face or Howl.
I bet you know what those are.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah. Ghibli stuff, anime stuff. Anderson pushed Sam Altman on this about the copyright piece. So yes, maybe it's legal within Japanese law, and certainly everybody was doing it. And we played with a couple where I said, do it in the style of The Simpsons. And it's like, oh, I can't do that. And I said, oh, make it a cartoon. And it came out exactly like The Simpsons. So,
Interesting.
yeah, Altman says that OpenAI might eventually set up payments for creators who choose to opt in. So maybe, the folks who made The Simpsons say, okay, great, we're going to opt in. And when someone says, they upload a picture of themselves and make me look like Marge or whatever, then there's some kind of payment. But that sounded very theoretical. But this is a whole new ball game as far as like style as the currency.
And so are people just putting like their selfies in and saying, turn
100%.
This into a Ghibli style?
Yep, 100%. Which is funny. I haven't done that. I did try to do the Simpsons one. I'm not an anime guy, so it didn't like ring true for me. I have used the tool a ton because the functions and features that to me are so helpful and impressive around the new image generation capability, which is this like native multimodal capability, is the ability to have control over exactly what you want the image to look like and have the words work. So I use it a lot for keynotes, but I have not yet used it for Ghibli.
Well, I'm trying it right now.
No, of course you are. Save the AI, Liz.
This is for research for my podcast.
Okay, good. Yeah, you care deeply about Studio Ghibli, so I'm glad you're doing that. While you're doing that, I'm going to muse a little bit here for the K-12 side. So imagine that you're a ninth grader, right? And now you're turning in a creative project, and it includes a Ghibli-style image or a film strip or a narrated character or an AI mood board. I mean, you have a lot of ability here to create stuff that looks high quality, representing some kind of a thought process. But what are we grading? Are we grading the idea or the interface? I mean, the idea and the way it's put together, I think probably shows some communications and problem solving and working with technology, but the product is really being done by the tool.
Yeah, but it's not about, banning AI art. It's about kind of understanding what's original and what it means to be original. And if AI is making the style easy to mimic, maybe the new skill is conceptual remixing, or I think it'll be interesting to see what teachers look at to grade or assess.
I love the story that we did because I just love everything we do because we're so damn special. Sorry, that's obnoxious. I love the story that we did, though, for real about the Copyright Office a while ago. It was called, the title was like No Copyright for AI. And it basically said, if it's a one shot or a zero shot and the kid just says, hey, make me this thing, and there's no creative human input and dialogue and going back and forth with the chatbot to get this really high quality outcome, it's not copyrightable. And I would say, again, there's not a lot of human authentic engagement, which is why the Copyright Office said it's not something you can copyright. But if you can see, and again, that's this great idea of being able to assess the chat interface. So if you can see the student going back and forth in meaningful ways, then maybe there's something really that's there and authentic and has a meaningful assessment.
Yeah.
Like it?
I do like it.
Okay, how did your little thing come out?
It's still thinking. Oh, there I am.
Are you amazing?
I mean, it's something. I'll have to text it over to you.
Did you do your whole family or just you?
I did just me from the Ireland trip, and I was making a St. Bridget's cross. So
You said do this in Studio Ghibli style?
Yes.
Fantastic. Put it into the show notes, and Andre, if you can throw it into the video feed, which you can see that video on TikTok, potentially, and certainly on Spotify or YouTube. All right, Liz, but one more interesting story came out just a couple days ago about this whole image thing. The interface is getting a little complicated inside ChatGPT on the left-hand side, both on mobile and on the desktop. There's a little thing called your library. And when you click on your library, it takes you to all the images that you have created. This is both in the free and the paid model. So let's talk a little bit about this. This is from Tom's Guide, April 16th, Amanda Caswell. And so OpenAI has launched an image library inside ChatGPT, giving users a centralized hub to view, organize, edit, and share AI-generated images. This update applies to both web and mobile, as I said, and all users, including the free tier. So it does significantly improve kind of the workflow by having to, like when you used to need to find an image you made, you had to dig through all your chat history.
Chats.
That was not very good. It is fun to watch them invent user interface as this technology evolves. So users can now easily access the library via the sidebar in the desktop or the menu on mobile. You can edit, regenerate, delete, or download or share images. And that share images is probably an important hint of where they're going. And you can highlight images, the parts of the images to target your edits. Like, remember when we did one of you and you had 3 hands?
Yeah.
Now you can put this little bubble over the 3 hands and say, hey, like, take one of the hands away, which is kind of cool. But the sharing images thing is interesting because there's a rumor going around that OpenAI might create a social network because what the world needs now is another social network. And so I think it's been fueled in part by this explosion of use from 400 to 800 or billion users. That's about 10% of the world's population, by the way. Fascinating. So the library currently supports GPT-4o images, but older images are going to kind of migrate in there. And so it does bring a lot of organization and efficiency to educators who are trying to use this tool. So what do you think? Now that you've got your Studio Ghibli thing, you can have all your images in one place, including that very important image.
Yeah, no, that's great because we do make a lot of images. I make a lot of graphs with this. And then when I'm trying to find that graph again, it takes a while. So our friend Sue over at the CCA, the College and Career Accelerator, and I have been going back and forth. She's been trying to make some images of different graphs because her students are doing presentations. So she was asking me how to make, she was just looking for one on dopamine and serotonin increases when you're doing something for somebody else, like in kindness.
Cool. Yeah.
So she's asked I've been helping her make some graphs and stuff. So, but those are very different graphs than like what I then use for the LEAP data. And then, just different graphs for, I feel like I'm making graphs all the time.
And why has the image generator been helpful for you for making graphs? Because they're just more visually compelling to look at?
Yeah. Or it's been able to like find the data and make the graph.
Oh, cool.
So that's been helpful.
And the text labels come out right, so they're readable and all that.
Yeah. This example with Sue has been really interesting because it was about the changes in these like neurotransmitters or neurochemical activity during acts of giving. And it went and found me the data first. And then I was like, okay, this looks good, but where are you getting it from? And then it gave me the sources. And then it made me the graphs as line graphs to show the change from like normal activity and during giving. And then it also made me bar graphs to compare normal activity and regular activity.
I love it. Do you know how you could improve your neurotransmission by giving to something good?
I don't know. What are you going to tell me?
Yeah, drink less water and charge your iPhone less.
Electricity, yes. Yeah. All of that is...
I bet you that's going to just make your dopamine fly.
I'll be saving the AI.
Save the AI.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of AI not doing good stuff, one more little story here, Liz, before we get to our very quick Beneath the Surface in this very, very busy week. So as you recall, you were the queen of vibe coding here in the ChatEDU podcast studio,
yes.
Right? Are you still vibe coding your little fingers away?
No, because I'm done as of today at 5:00 when I drop suits off for the next for the youth to go off to nationals. I am done for the season.
Nice job. Congratulations.
Yes.
All right. So your vibe coding app is going to sit aside for a little while?
For a little bit until it's time to start rhinestoning some new suits.
Rhinestoning again. You're like a rhinestone cowgirl. 2 songs in like 90 seconds.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the competitors, so you use Bolt. So we talked about Bolt, Windsurf, and Cursor. So one of the competitors to Bolt is called Cursor. Very, very popular tool. Folks with a little bit more coding skill, but like a good vibe coding tool. And so it's an agentic tool. You put in this text and it kind of starts building its own app. But they had another piece of autonomous activity that went on that caused a little bit of trouble. Yeah, so this is a really interesting company. And both Cursor and Windsurf were in talks with OpenAI to get acquired because they're doing all this cool vibe coding stuff. And so OpenAI has been buying some companies. And so they, I think that maybe they just did the acquisition of Windsurf, but they talked to Cursor too, just when this meltdown happened. And that was for $3 billion. So just know that the vibe coding thing is catching on. And so here in this case, Cursor made a little boo-boo. So the title is Company Apologized After AI Support Agent Invents Policy that Causes Uproar. This is from Ars Technica. And so here's the quick summary. But we point this out because, not just because it's a geeky AI story, but next week we're going to do a story actually about AI agents coming to higher ed. So all this talk about agents and agents and agents, and you and I can't decide if it's BS or it's real, where there'll be real agents. Like Deep Research is an agent where it's doing stuff independently. Very impressive. Like we see the value proposition of that, so we've covered it on the podcast. Will there be an agent that's going to like help teachers move their grades from one page to another, or fill out a bus form or an incident report? I don't know. We'll see. But higher ed is jumping on the bandwagon. We'll cover that next week. But here's a case where one of these agentic actions didn't go great. So a developer using an AI-assisted code editor, in this case Cursor, ran into a session problem when switching between devices, a common workflow for devs. Did you switch between Bolt on the phone and Bolt on the desktop? Or were you...
I was mostly on the desktop, but then using the app on my phone.
See? Okay, great. So that's a perfect example. So when this happened, like a dev was trying to do something on the phone and the desktop, and it said, oh, you got a problem. So they contacted support. And an AI agent named Sam responded confidently. It stated something that was entirely hallucinated. So it said that Cursor only allows one device per subscription for security reasons, right? So could you imagine in your vibe coding of your Rhinestone app, if you were working in that workflow and all of a sudden said, this won't work, you contact support and support goes, oh, sorry, this is, a new security thing that we're doing.
So like you can only use it on your desktop.
Exactly.
And so that would be really annoying because you also want to be able to use it on your phone.
Yep. So the response sparked outrage online, with devs believing that a major change had been made without notice. Some immediately canceled subscriptions and posted their complaints on Reddit and Hacker News. But the problem here, Liz, right, was that the AI support, Sam, was an AI agent. So it's funny, it's ironic, because a tool that automates coding also automated customer assistance. And when the customer assistant gave an answer, it hallucinated it, and it made something up that really pissed some people off.
After this whole incident happened, they did clarify. The company clarified and said there wasn't a policy like that, and they issued refunds and said they now clearly label AI-generated messages and support replies. But, that's a big deal if it's, I know we've been trying to do some of that stuff here in HR, and I mean, how important it is that it gets it right. Like it cannot hallucinate an HR policy, because if it does, that's really bad.
We covered a story a while back on School AI because just the edges of these language models, which are probabilistic, we don't totally know what they're going to say. In the School AI story, it made up some answers around Anne Frank that were problematic. In this case, in a customer service facing kind of function, they try to automate a process and it hallucinates an answer. So in a couple of weeks, you're going to hear a story that Jonathan and I covered on one of the weeks that you're traveling, globetrotting, I think. And we cover a story about NASA, just saying like the inconsistencies and inaccuracies inside these systems make it tough to really rely on them for high stakes work. And so as K-12 and higher ed thinks about autonomous AI and agents and agentic activities, we're going to kind of cover the places where they, fail, so that we can, help folks be thoughtful and careful about it.
I mean, the last thing is that this is also a lesson in how quickly false information can snowball in a public forum. Yeah. So, as soon as they put it on Reddit, like it created this effect of people canceling subscriptions left and right and, not using it. And like that can have a huge, like this one mistake can really impact a company, because now they have to go back and get all their users back to them when they may be like, I'm not going back. Like, I can't trust you as a company. So this false information that can snowball is also its own issue.
Can you imagine if this was one of the reasons? So OpenAI is looking at both Cursor and Windsurf, these two companies, to buy one of them for $3 billion. Like, well, that company hallucinates something in its AI support office, so we're going to go with the other company.
Right.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah, not good.
Not good.
Hi, I'm Cameron Audia, executive producer of ChatEDU. Our AI and education micro-credential is full, thanks to many in the ChatEDU audience. If you'd like to join the waitlist for the next cohort, visit skills21.org/AI/micro.
All right, Matt, now it's time to go beneath the surface with an awesome story about a high schooler doing some very cool work at Caltech.
I dreamed this morning about writing a book. I don't have, you're a book writer, so I'm like jealous, and I think you're so cool. So but I was like, if I'm going to have a book, I think the title's going to be called Beyond the Bot. And then the subtitle is something like, how high school kids and middle school kids are doing really cool things with AI beyond having it be their personalized tutor.
Well, my book is getting a new title.
Oh, really?
So I think that...
Wait, Andre, insert the breaking news.
Well, last week, my editor contacted me because now we are in the title phase. And this week we start book cover art. So
it's so cool.
I believe as long as the editors approve my choice, it's going to be Learning They'll Love.
Learning They'll Love.
Subtitle, something about personal interest projects.
Wow, what was the original? What was the one before that?
I mean, right now, the working title has been Personal Interest Projects for Increased Student Engagement, which is pretty boring.
Someone went to ChatGPT and said, can you give me 5 better options for this book title?
Well, my editor jokingly suggested Pip Pip Hooray, but that didn't go very far.
That's great.
But I had a couple of different choices. I was going to text you, but you were off in Tennessee and I didn't want to bother you. So
you can bother me anytime. But yeah, I love Learning They'll Love.
Learning They'll Love is the one I'm going to go with.
Oh my gosh.
So hopefully the editors at ASCD will go with that. And then this week I should be getting some samples of cover art.
Oh, I can't wait to see them. Please send them along so that I can make Studio Ghibli versions of them or something. So last week, we've been using this bucket for a while for these types of stories because we're trying to cover quite a few of them. We've been calling them AI in the wild, and that got how no one commented on Spotify about this. So despite Liz's amazing sound effect on that one, we might shift it a little bit to Beyond the Bot because I think Beyond the Bot really captures the idea that when kids are using AI, when students and college students are using AI in the context of solving real-world problems, it can be such an accelerant or a leverage, and they're building the skills that we're pretty convinced they're going to need, learning to learn, working with technology, problem solving, et cetera, et cetera. So anyhow, the title of this whole episode is Beyond the Bot, about how one kid kind of shifted the world for NASA. So let's jump right in.
Yes.
So anyone who thought that students were doing anything with AI, meet this guy named Matteo Paz. So he's a high school student who just used machine learning to discover 1.5 million previously unknown objects in space. This comes from the Astronomical Journal and is from one single author, Matteo himself.
That's amazing.
Do you read the Astronomical Journal on a regular basis?
I can't say that I do, but I'd be really impressed and way over my head if I even touched the journal.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't just cool, right? This literally expands the reach of a NASA mission. So this student, in partnership with a highly skilled professor, he processed over a decade of NEOWISE data. And he flagged variable objects and built an AI model that other astronomers can use. So he took all this past data and then made it basically a groundbreaking discovery, building a new AI model.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
He certainly didn't do it alone. He had this phenomenal mentor, Davy Kirkpatrick, who's a Caltech astronomer. And Kirkpatrick just said he really wanted to pay it forward because a 9th grade teacher once did the same for him cool. Took him under his wing. And this is such a perfect case study in what happens when we say yes to student curiosity and back it with real scaffolding, giving them these opportunities to just dive deep into something they really love.
Yeah. And this kid had some pedigree behind him already, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is a kid who was studying advanced undergraduate math by the time he got to Caltech's summer program because he finished AP Calc BC in 8th grade. So this kid had some skills. So what he was doing is instead of manually scanning this NEOWISE data, he built a sub-millisecond Fourier and wavelet-based model to automate anomaly detection, which is a lot of words and very deep math. But basically, he built an AI system that can automate this detection in milliseconds that normally would take days, weeks, months, years to analyze.
Right. And it's mostly about shifts, right? So you have all this data. He and Kirkpatrick were really focusing on these brightness shifts. So it classifies brightness shifts in distant cosmic bodies like quasars and binary stars at scale. So you can look at these over a significant amount of time because he had all this back data. And he's already suggesting that it could be applied to everything from stock market time series to atmospheric data like pollution cycles. So it's a model that's designed to use celestial bodies to look at changes in light and brightness, so shifts. But he's thinking it could be applied in other contexts, which is really, really cool. So in the world of K-12, this is a roadmap. You've got a high school kid who's co-building with a scientist, publishing real work, contributing to space science, and getting paid for it, by the way, by Caltech. So that was kind of a cool breakthrough. It's not just a kid using ChatGPT to be like, hey, be my thought partner, or, photomath to answer a question for me. One of the things that you've observed in the forthcoming ACD book, potentially titled Learning They'll Love, is that when students are solving real world problems that they care about, learning is deepened, is amplified, is accelerated. And our contention is that AI can be a huge accelerant for that, because in this case, it's a student building an AI model, but even AI as a generative, coach can help student in a learning they'll love kind of context to make the work more deep and more meaningful. Yeah, love it.
It's amazing. I mean, we had students publishing with professors when we were doing capstone years ago, obviously not with AI stuff yet, but giving these students the chance to work with these high-powered mentors is just so amazing. And I mean, we have to stop asking these questions about should students be using AI. We've got to think about how high are we going to let them aim? Like, Matteo didn't aim for the stars. He found 1.5 million more of them. So it's just so great to see.
I love that line. I think that needs to make its way into learning they'll love.
Sure.
This is a personal interest project for sure. That's really great. Nice. Nicely done.
And now it's time for our Bright Bite, Matt. So what do we got this week?
Yeah, so in these Bright Bites, again, every single week, we're trying to find examples where AI is making meaningful contributions to society, to culture, to health, to wellness, to drug discovery, and it's been fun. We have 3 or 4 of them every week to look at and choose from. So in this case, we're looking at a piece from Nature News, April 14th. Miriam Nadoff is the author, and the title is AI-Boosted Cameras to Help Blind People Navigate.
So researchers from Shanghai's Jiao Tong University have created a prototype wearable that helps visually impaired users navigate using AI-powered computer vision. So the users wear camera-equipped glasses and a tiny computer running machine learning models trained to recognize objects like walls, furniture, and doors. And it delivers real-time audio cues and vibration alerts through these optional artificial skin patches that they put on their wrists and fingers. And so it really helps them navigate the world. In tests, users navigated faster and more accurately than using the typical white cane.
Which is really the only tool available to someone with sight impairment, right? To kind of be, or a guide.
Or a guide dog.
Yes, thank you.
But this system improved the distance they can travel and time by 25%. So AI's ability to interpret the environment beyond just detecting objects and actually knowing what is in the way offers a huge upgrade to traditional mobility tools. Trials in both indoor mazes and real-world settings showed really promising results. And this is amazing. I mean, obviously, I have a big heart for the guide dogs because our little puppy Aloe has had some puppies. And just last week, we had puppies in our house that were going to someday be guide dogs. But again, dogs, canes, any of these systems can't tell a user what's in the way, just that something's in the way.
And we will drop that link in the show notes. So another great Bright Bite.
I love it.
All right, Dr. Reddy, I believe it is time to
roll the credits.
Thanks, Liz.
No problem, Matt. As always, we'd love to hear what you think. So please let us know at ChatEDU@edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org. And also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are using. ChatEDU is brought to you by EdAdvance, the nonprofit regional education service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. ChatEDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Andre Angelo and Justin Pasco, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. ChatEDU's executive producer is the multi-talented rock star Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big ChatEDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the Executive Director at Ed Advanced, and I want you to know how much we appreciate our listeners. If you enjoyed the podcast, feel free to explore Ed Advance's other AI services, which include customized professional learning of all kinds, conferences, and our micro-credential co-sponsored by the Southern Connecticut State University Office of Workforce and Lifelong Learning. Just visit skills21.org/AI to learn more. That's all for now, and thank you again for listening to ChatEDU.